This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your source for the latest Iowa ag news headlines right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley.
Good day and welcome to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Today is Monday, May 19th of 2025, and we are so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I talk with the State Climatologist for Iowa, Dr. Justin Glisan, as we have some severe weather patterns forming a little bit, but more importantly, the presence of rain in the forecast. We talked about how that can impact the crops, especially as we head to finish up planting season. We'll also have the closing markets with the folks from agmarket.net. But first off, here's my conversation with State Climatologist Dr. Justin Glisan. Of course, we're in the middle of planting season, actually getting closer to the end now, and that planting window has been pretty wide open for the most part. Justin, what have you seen across the state for those weather patterns and heard from farmers on how that weather has cooperated for them to get in the field?
Yep, great to be back with you, Riley. So I think the headline has been warm and dry, and that's been an excellent window for farmers to get the planters out, get field work going, and as you mentioned, start to wrap up the planting season. We've been anywhere from, if you look at southeast Iowa to the northwest, anywhere from 3 to 15 degrees above average. And we started with some low dew points over the last 7 to 10 days, and we've started to see the dew points ramp up as the moisture gate from the Gulf also opens. So what that's, number one, we had an excellent planting window. We had some delays with some wetter conditions towards the end of April and getting into early May. But over the last 2 weeks, we've really had an excellent window. We've seen rapid planting progress just over the last week. We're going to see a pattern shift over the next 7 days towards cooler temperatures, in fact, cooler than where we should be around this time of the year, but also widespread chances for anywhere from 1.5 inches to 3 inches if the forecast verifies over the next 7 days.
So then looking at those field conditions that we've seen so far, I know a lot of people talking about those drier soils. Are we at right now kind of a critical point where those soils are getting a little too dry? Or, if we get some timely rains like it looks like we might, would be sitting in a little bit better of a position?
Well, we always talk about those $1 million rains during the growing season. We're right on the cusp of things getting particularly dry, including the topsoil moisture. We've heard of some crusting issues from farmers around the state. So the rainfall that's in the forecast couldn't come at a better time, in having an excellent window to plant, and then have the faucet turn on would be ideal. So as I mentioned, hopefully this forecast does verify and we do get a good amount of moisture. We've seen abnormal dryness extend across southern Iowa by about 10% with the U.S. Drought Monitor depiction this morning. Near normal drought-free conditions across central Iowa. But if you look broad scale across the upper Midwest, including west of us in Nebraska, drought conditions are expanding. So we do definitely need this rain and timely rains as we go through late May into June, the 2 wettest months for the state.
And then looking at the kind of projected weather patterns for this summer in the critical points of the growing season, obviously we don't have a crystal ball to be able to predict what exactly the weather will do. But when we're looking at, say, La Nina or El Nino, how is that weather looking to be for us, both temperature and moisture-wise?
Yeah, great question. So we're currently in neutral conditions. La Nina was persisting through winter into early spring. Finally, neutral conditions formed in March, meaning near normal sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific. The atmosphere decouples, doesn't respond to those ocean waters, and basically we're in between El Nino and La Nina. And as we move into the middle of the growing season, the warmest time of the year, the correlation between La Nina or El Nino and summertime behavior is very small, given that it's more thunderstorm driven precipitation that we get. So if you look at the current outlooks, which we're still in what's called the spring barrier. We're in a transition from large scale, synoptic scale weather patterns in the winter to thunderstorm driven rainfalls in the late spring, early summer. So it's difficult to get a real good idea of what June, July, and August will look like. But if we look at the current outlooks, we do see a leaning signal towards warmer temperatures and then leaning drier for much of the state. Now, it's not a huge probability of being dry, but right now there is a slight warm and dry signal. So when we're talking about those longer term precipitation deficits going back 3, 4, 5 years, if you do get into a warm and dry pattern, that's where you start to see those drought conditions that can return given the longer term hydrological impacts that we've seen. So if we get this rainfall over the next 7 days, that'll really help. And then soil moisture, the amount of moisture that we have in the profile will be able to be used for fueling thunderstorms, and that could change those outlooks. So when we talk next month, probably in the middle of June, we'll have a better idea of what the general summertime behavior could be.
And then you mentioned those thunderstorms that we could see potentially in the next week. When it comes to the severe risk for those storms, what are we maybe looking at for that?
Yeah, so Storm Prediction Center has a convective outlook that goes out 8 days. I haven't seen any semblance of a signal in the 8-day convective outlook that would suggest any kind of severe weather right now. And the outlooks, again, are looking cooler and leaning wetter. So when you see a warm and wet outlook, that usually means higher probabilities for more thunderstorms and more severe weather. Right now, we have a system that's producing severe weather north and east of us, and then in the Ohio Valley tomorrow. So not seeing a pattern right now. This could change over the weekend, but any type of rainfall that we could get, we'll definitely take.
All right, Justin, lots of great information today. For anyone who would like to get in touch with the Iowa Climatology Bureau and even perhaps send in some ground condition observations, how can they do that?
Yeah, excellent. So my direct line is 515-281-8981, or Google Iowa Climatology Bureau. It has all my contact information. And yes, with the drier conditions that we've seen and the potential for drier conditions as we move through the growing season, getting those reports on the ground to match up with what our models and our satellite products give us only helps us produce a better drought monitor depiction for our farmers and producers. So thank you for bringing that up.
All right, Justin, of course. And thanks again for the information. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Riley.
Okay. That again was Dr. Justin Glisan. He's the state climatologist for Iowa. We'll have a check of the closing markets next, but first, here's a word from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
Welcome back to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and it's time now to take a look at the closing markets with Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. First off, Robin, what do we see going on in the grains on this Monday?
Well, it started out slow. We really didn't have a whole lot of real news to trigger buying or selling one way or the other, but we did start to gain a little bit more strength, primarily in the corn market as we moved through the day into the close. So that was positive. Maybe part of that had to do with export inspections. I mean, we were really good again today at 1.719 million metric ton. We seem to be consistent at a lot of corn being sealed and ready for shipments out. The average estimate was 1.375, so well above that. So that maybe gave some underlying support to the market. But we're moving along in planting progress. We're getting to that point. Now we've seen some variable weather. Some areas are dry, some areas got more rain than they wanted to, and that's kind of a standard, as we move through or kind of has been a standard as we move through the spring. So again, that wasn't a whole lot, but I think the matter of the market being sold as far down as it had been, we're seeing a little bit more interest in buying, maybe from end users, maybe from speculators, being down at this point. Now, the Commitment of Traders report was surprisingly showed a lot of selling and on the up until Tuesday of last week. So corn is actually net short now by the fund traders, managed money traders. And that's the first time since October that they've actually been net short. They're net short about 5,000 contracts, somewhere in that vicinity. Going back to the export inspections, soybeans were low at 217,842 metric ton. The expectation was 425,000. Wheat was 423,758 metric ton. Expectations were 400,000. So low on soybeans. A lot of that still has to do with China situation, but we did see 145,000 tons of soybean meal sale to the Philippines that was announced early this morning. So that really didn't underpin that market either. That was slightly lower going into the close. But wheat, corn, and soybeans were higher, closing out at least the first day of the week. But again, not a lot really go underneath the market to really trigger a lot of interest one way or the other. But we did at least drift a little bit higher. Now on the wheat side too, there's a record net short on the funds on Kansas City wheat. So we're really seeing some pressure on there in the winter wheat. Progress, or I should say conditions, is expected at 54% good to excellent. That was the same as it was last week. So not a lot of real major issues as far as the wheat are concerned. Now, planting progress for corn is expected at 78% complete versus 62% last week. Soybeans 64% complete versus 48% last week, and spring wheat at 80% complete versus 65% last week. So a lot of progress is expected to have been made over the last week. So I don't know if we're setting the stage at least for a little bit more buying interest coming in here, just because of, especially in the corn market, because of the selling that we went on. But we looked at just a lot of back and forth trading, not a lot of news to really push the market one way or the other. We're looking for some weather, some rain moving across in some areas as we move through this week. Beneficial in some, maybe not quite so beneficial in some other areas.
All right, Robin. And then looking at the livestock side of the markets, how are cattle and hogs doing today?
Well, cattle moved higher. It seems like, at least the live cattle, it seems like the liquidation last week might have run its course. We did pop up a little bit on Friday, but that continued today. So the price correction that we saw might have been sufficient. Now, box beef prices continue to remain strong. At the midday report, choice was up $1.40, select up $2.17. We're continuing to see that strength there, and a lot of that might be tied to the upcoming Memorial Day weekend. Usually is a big push for beef that weekend. Now, after that, we could see a little bit more of if you want to call it, lack of real demand coming in, in the summertime, which is down the road a little bit. Dog days of summer, we usually see a little bit lighter beef demand, but right now it's seeing supported. Now, cash last week was mixed in the Southern live cattle trade, $1 higher to $1 lower. Northern dressed was $2 higher. A little disappointing for some of the traders, anticipating continued stronger prices, but packers had surrounded themselves with a little more cattle last week, and we don't know for sure what they were able to purchase going ahead for this week, but we might be seeing that market slow down from meteoric rise that we've seen over a past number of weeks. Feeder cattle were mixed, didn't have a lot to go on there. Now we do have feeder cattle do have chart gaps above the market, so chart gaps are usually filled. So it wouldn't be surprising if we continue to see some support under live cattle to see those feeder cattle rebound and close those chart gaps. Now, on the protein side as well, which could impact the cattle, is Brazil had some bird flu outbreak, and China, the EU, and Argentina suspended their poultry imports. Now, that suspension is expected to last at least 60 days. So this could increase prices for global protein. So, we could see maybe some support coming into hogs, maybe some support coming into the live cattle as they look for, alternatives there. Now, on the hog side, they're trying hard to maintain the gains of last week. We did see some spread trading with some pressure on nearby months, supported later months. And that spread trading might have been the result of the large decrease in cash on Friday. The National Direct Afternoon Hog Report showed cash down $6.69. That's the biggest loss or largest decrease we've seen in quite some time. So that might have influenced the spread trading today. Midday cash today was not reported due to lack of volume and the reporting from the packers. Cutouts were up $1.67 though, and that can provide a little bit more optimism as far as the market are concerned as we move through into Tuesday and maybe the rest of the week.
All right, Robin, lots of great information today. For anyone who would like to get more information from agmarket.net, how can they do that?
They can call me directly if they'd like at 877-256-3253. Go to our website, agmarket.net. There's an 844 toll-free number there. Feel free to call in. Somebody will be glad to answer your questions.
All right, thanks again for your time as always, Robin, and we look forward to talking again soon.
All right, thank you. It's always a pleasure.
That again was Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. We'll take a look at how the numbers close through the market window at iowaagnet.com. July corn up 4 even at 447.5. July soybeans up 3/4 cent at 10.50 3/4. July soybean meal down 80 cents at 291.10. Soybean oil up 51 cents at 49.44. Chicago wheat up 4 even at 5.29 even. Kansas City hard red wheat up 6 1/4 at 5.22 3/4. Minneapolis spring wheat at news time up 11 3/4 at 5.85 even. July oats up 14 3/4 at 3.57 1/4. On the Merc, June live cattle up 75 cents at 212.97. August feeders down 12 cents at 297.47. June lean hogs down $1.07 at 99.25. Pork cutout went unchanged at 106.30. In June, Class 3 milk down 25 cents at 18.98. And that's been a check of the markets here on Ag Matters PM. That also brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. Also follow us on social media at Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and TikTok, and find our video content as well as previous episodes of AM/PM on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell to see when those videos go live. Don't forget as well to check out our free morning, midday, and closing market podcasts, as well as the Iowa Ag Matters podcast and Pods of Potential. Find those on your favorite podcasting service at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Riley Smith. On behalf of Mark Magnuson, Andy Peterson, and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.